Hello, everybody out there in the land of make-believe. Uncle Barko here, and starting a new podcast. And even though you probably watching this on YouTube, it's a podcast. We've decided. So, what's the podcast about? What is art? I have a format. I'm not just babbling. Sound like I'm babbling, Rina?
A little bit.
Have I already introduced you?
You have not.
Rina! We're here with Rina, we're both master crafters, and we're going to discuss what a master crafter is in a minute, which is different from a master craftsman.
I hope so.
Because a master craftsman is somebody who's a woodworker of some sort.
Let's talk about it later.
We're master crafters. We're doing this podcast, and originally it was going to be one session called What is Art? And then we started talking about what we would talk about in a session like that, and it got so convoluted so quickly that I realized that it had to be a series. So this is a series called What is Art? And then this particular episode is What Isn't Art? And with the format I have here, I don't have a script. There's no script. I decided it would be better if we did this on a blank canvas. Pun intended. So I haven't put a lot of thought into it so that it would be fresh when you and I discuss it and the listeners can think about it along with us.
Same here. I don't really have any strong ideas.
But in the format, I always want to start out with a little a quote type deal. A bark me-ism, if you will. Even if you won't, it's too late. And that is... in my book, if someone says something isn't art, then it absolutely must be. So that's the quote we're working on. That's the theme of this particular discussion.
It's going to get really convoluted if every time we decide something isn't art, that makes it art.
That if someone says that's not art, that's specifically in a situation where you'll see somebody at like a Pollock. What's that guy? Sidney Pollock? Jason Pollock? He's one of the Pollocks. Jackson Pollock. He's good too. Doesn't do as good impressions as let's say, who's the other Pollock from Usual Suspects?
Can't think of his name.
I gotta look it up. God damn it. Kevin Pollock. He's no Kevin Pollock.
He's no Kevin Pollock. Jackson Pollock does worse impressions of other actors than Kevin Pollock does.
I can guarantee that. Now, I've never seen any of Kevin Pollock's paintings. What if he paints? Let's look that up.
That would be so meta if Kevin Pollock specifically did Jackson Pollock painting style as an impression because Kevin Pollock is an impressionist.
Ooh, that's meta.
Paintings of Kevin Pollock and paintings by Jackson Pollock side by side.
No. Yeah, okay. I don't think he paints. I don't think Kevin paints.
But we need to email Kevin Pollock and tell him he needs to start doing Jackson Pollock impressions in painting form.
Yes, if he wants any respect from us.
Because otherwise, he is dead to us.
Absolutely. You get a guy and he'll be looking at a Jackson Pollock and he'll say that's not art. And in that case, it must be art because you're talking about it.
Let's talk about whether or not I agree with that. In a little bit. Do we want to start that now?
Oh, let's first our credentials. Our credentials. Why are we allowed to talk to you about art? What do we know about it? What do we know? What do you know about it? I know that, Rina, you went to the school for art. You went to art school. Did you get some sort of degree in the art school?
I have taken several classes at college level and a little bit beyond that had to do with different kinds of art forms. And I have a bachelor's in theater, which has a lot of art forms.
Right. Okay. There you go. Theater. Is that how you said it?
I often say theater.
Not theater?
I think it's a regional thing. I say theater.
We're from the same region.
No, you grew up in the Midwest a little bit.
Yeah, I never said theater while I was living there, though. We went to the movies.
You say theater.
Theater.
I say theater.
Well, most of the things I say wrong are wrong, so you're probably right.
I have a degree in drama.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. There you go.
As long as we're not going to go with drama, I'm fine. I have a drama degree.
All right.
But there was a lot of art there.
Yeah. That's the distinction that I make with master crafters is that A master crafter may not be a master at every craft, but knows enough about crafts to know what crafts are involved in a particular project. So a lot of people go to art fairs and you'll see them say, I could make that. And I say, you wouldn't even know where to buy the materials to make that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I go to art fairs and I say in my head I could make that, but I didn't say it out loud because I'm not a jerk. That a master crafter will be able to look at a projected outcome and know what crafts are involved and skills are involved in to achieving that. Master of all master crafters is, of course, Adam Savage. Adam Savage, who has a whole TV show deal on the YouTubes. It's YouTubes. He's got the YouTubes. He's got all the YouTubes.
He has all the YouTubes. He has a fantastic channel, and he also does a podcast on that channel where they just the video is just them talking on the podcast.
Oh, the video, right.
But yeah, he has a team of master crafters who know all the materials, and he's always exploring new materials.
Right. So, and he's probably also a master craftsman.
Yes.
Like if you can use a lathe.
Yeah.
A lathe. If you own a lathe, you're probably a master craftsman as well as a master crafter.
He is both, and he's been doing. He's exploring a lot of new materials and techniques, and he's improving his own precision at his own techniques, and he's doing a lot of videos where he discusses that. So I do absolutely consider him both a master craftsman and a master crafter.
Agreed. Adam Savage is awesome.
Yes.
So
hot take.
And now we've both been doing this. Now I personally I never done. I did go to school. I went to the Pratt Institute for Jewelry Design, and I took a lot of classes in high school. But most of my learning's been done just self-taught. I'm a self-taught crafts person.
I believe that everybody who knows anything is essentially self-taught because they had to put in the work. Even if they were in a class where there was an instructor, they still have to do the work to learn it. So I don't make a huge distinction between learning how to do a kind of art in an art class and learning how to do that kind of art with your own time, except that the people in the class might have a couple more shortcuts or techniques.
That's absolutely true. It takes me a lot more time to find the resources to teach myself things, having those resources already readily available, and a syllabus. Well, I don't even know what a syllabus is.
You do. You used it correctly.
I've heard other people use it, so I thought I'd throw it in there. A syllabus to guide you through the learning process. So if I want to learn, like right now, I want to learn Inkscape, which is a vector graphics program
Software.
which I understand vector graphics conceptually, although I don't know how they work on a programming level.
The other thing about a class is that they're often held in a place where there's equipment available. For instance, I took a ceramics class in college. They had a kiln.
True.
I do not have a kiln.
Yeah.
So that is a skill I would not have been able to learn in my own home without renting kiln space.
For sure.
But I still don't make a distinction between somebody who's taught in an educational institution and somebody who teaches themselves in terms of whether or not they're a master crafter.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Sure. Crafter. Yes.
Crafter.
Yes. I think that's the distinction between a crafter and a craftsman is the certificates. Oh, so and then I have since the 80s have been doing. I've just been going through crafts. I've been going through learning a craft, feeling though I understand it, moving into the next craft. So if I go to an art fair, I can pretty much look at everything and know how they made it. Like I know how they made that, I know how they made it. I'm not saying that I could make it. But if somebody asked me what materials were needed to make something like that, I could send them in the right direction. I could lead them to those resources, which is kind of what I'm trying to do with this channel and my Facebook page, Barko Art Studio, also on Instagram. Barko Art Studio is culminate resources. Culminate, is that a
Curate.
That's what I said. curate. Or did you say that? You said that. Curate. I want to curate resources and have a place for people to go where if they've got questions, if I can't find out if I don't have the answers, I can find out what the answers are. And because I want to know the answers. If somebody comes to me with a craft question and I don't know the answer, I want to know the answer to that question. And so I love having the opportunity to be online and to talk to different people on to different forums about crafting and resolutions to problems and stuff like that, because I learn more about my own crafts, and I like to do crafts that are multimedia. So, and you do too. You do with your resin crafting, which I think is what you're most into now.
It is, but I'm going to correct you because this is a term of art. Multimedia is usually used for art that's a combination of like video and audio and movie clips and stuff, whereas mixed media is where you combine different physical materials into a piece of visual art.
Well, thank you for correcting me.
You're welcome.
I say that because we don't swear on this. We don't swear on this podcast because it's not for kids. We were talking about this earlier. It's not. We're not making the podcast for kids, but we do understand that you might have to listen to it around your kids and don't need us having to teach your kids new things. So we're trying not to swear, but thanks. What did I say? Mixed media?
You said multimedia. I corrected you because it's mixed media, and those are not terms I made up. Those are the terms people use for these.
Right, and you know this because you are an educated theatrical. You have a master's in theater?
My master's is not in theater.
Because I'm self-taught. I taught myself.
You get the bachelor's first.
I'm a self-taught.
You're an autodidact.
I just said there's no swearing on this podcast. We just went through this. I'll let you apologize later. Okay, so there is a format for this podcast, and we do want it to be not endless. So, introductions. In the series, we are going to be exploring. I wrote some stuff. In this series, we are going to be exploring ideas about what art is, what an artist is, and what it is to experience art as an audience. And that was my first stumbling block was to define a person who looks at art. Is it an audience? Is it but that's for another podcast. This is for another podcast. We're already over budget on this. Our topic today is to set a standard for what we mean by art in the context of this series and what we will be excluding in order to focus on specific aspects of the subject. And then I introduce you, and I introduce me, and we go through our credentials, which we've done. We've done that sufficiently. Yes? Okay. So to define art. So here's the deal, is in the context of this series, let me pull up the definition of art. Art definition. The expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. And the second one here is various branches of creative activity such as painting, music, literature, and dance. Okay, right there. For this podcast, we're leaving out dance. We're leaving out any performance art. We're leaving out any word art, any literature. Are
we leaving out music?
And music.
Okay.
For this series, when we're talking about art, I'm just talking about looking at our... Is there touchy art? I'm surprised that there isn't more touchy art, but people greasy. You don't want people touching your art, even if that's what it's meant for.
My next question was sculpture.
You look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, and in my case, because I make sculptures, but they're for playing with a little bit. But no, most of my sculptures that I make that are technically toys are just for display purposes only. Yeah. I mean, you're not gonna buy a $35 hand painted toy and then play make believe with it. Like I do. I got a bunch of them around. That's all I do. But most people put my toys up, my art toys up as spectacles.
Okay, so sculptures and visual media, not videos. So still
I want to say object art.
actual hand made by humans that you can pick up and walk around with.
Yes.
As opposed to digital, that's only digital?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
No digital. If it's a digital print, yes. If it is a look on the computer GIF or JPEG or whatnot, no, we're excluding that for this particular context, while at the same time acknowledging it as art. Because, of course, all of these things are art, music, and all of these are forms of creativity that I would believe fall under the definition of art. And I do music-y stuff too, and I think that it's an art form.
But for this, we're going to talk about mostly things that have been created by human hands with things like paint, ink, clay, and are artifacts of a human effort and not specifically things like Photoshop or other softwares. While we're figuring out what isn't art.
Yeah.
Because if we're talking about
what are they called? NTS?
NFT.
NFT's not art.
Okay.
That's what you're getting at. If you're trying to sell me some NFTs, I'm not buying.
I wasn't. I'll talk to you about that later.
We might do specific episodes about music or digital art. But I mean, digital art, moving art. I don't know what to say about digital art because all of my 90% of the art I do now is digital, but the intent is for it to be printed out in physical form onto an object. That is what we're talking about today. Okay. And is that included? Yes, it is art in the context of this particular series, because you can look at it. It can be a GIF isn't art, because you can't print out a GIF onto a T-shirt and then give it to someone or sell it. It's not a physical piece of art, but a digital drawing can be printed out, or in some cases a digital sculpture can also be printed out. So the end result of the effort can be, in many cases, a commodity.
Yes. So if you take your digital art software and you make a drawing using your mouse and your keyboard and your tablet and your digital pen, and then you have that...
It's called a stylus.
And then you print that out on a pillow and give it to a friend so they have a pillow with your drawing on it. Where does that fit in today's conversation about what is not art?
It doesn't. It is art.
Okay. So what is not art?
All the other stuff I just said. Music and dancing and TV, moving images, anything that can't be physical.
Okay.
And although digital is a process of becoming physical, like as in printable sculptures, but that's different from 3D animation, which although is art, isn't art in the context of this series.
So in this episode, we are not trying to figure out on a metaphysical level what is not art. We're trying to figure out only what we're not going to talk about on the rest of the series.
In the context of the series, yes. Yeah, because the first time we tried to talk about it, we automatically got off track immediately on things that... Because, I mean, everything is art.
Yes.
But if you want to talk about it on a serious level, you gotta categorize it and really break it up into different genres, different mediums, different venues.
That brings me to one of the other things I brought up originally, which is in that definition that you read, it specified human. So are we going to limit our discussion to art created by humans as opposed to other animals?
Okay, so there's a lot of people conflate beauty and art as the same thing. And there's a lot of beauty in nature. And there are animals who do beautiful things. There's those weird fish that make the mosaics. Mm-hmm.
There's spider webs.
Is that fish an artist? No, because there was no intent on the fish to make a pretty thing. But there's the bowerbirds. And the bowerbirds make crazy bowers, and the intent is to make something pretty to attract the lady.
Exactly.
And isn't that what art really is? Is just a way to get chicks.
I think it is.
But
the intent is definitely there with the birds.
The intent is there with the birds. So, I mean, in the greater context of, in the umbrella that we were speaking about, would a bowerbird's bower be considered art? No.
Okay.
Because let's just stick to people.
Got it.
Let's just stick to people.
We're defining the universe.
Yeah.
Of the data that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Human beings always with an intent, or can a human being unintentionally make something that we will consider art?
That's the question, and that gets to that. I think that's a whole episode in itself.
Okay. Is
the creation of art, and what does that mean to be an artist? And I think that falls into that. That's actually going to be the next episode, so hold on to your butts for that one.
Great, because I have a fantastic example of unintentional art.
And that's kind of where the question comes in if somebody says, oh, that's not art. If I see something that somebody put together intentionally to be utilitarian, some utilitarian object that they manufactured for the purpose of usefulness, let's say. But I see that there's an artistic value to it, and I say that's art. Somebody else says that isn't art. Just the fact that we're having a conversation about it, that's art between me and the person I'm talking to, or that's art in the eye of the beholder, I guess you could say.
I keep coming back around to that in my own thoughts. If it's art to you, then it's art.
Yes. Right. Yeah, and even to some extent in the context of this again, in the context of the series, and that could be something that we could focus on, in fact, is unintentional art. But more specifically, let's say you see a composition that you think is particularly beautiful, whether it is intentional or unintentional or natural or made by humans. And you take a picture of that and you print that photo out, that's now art. The thing that you saw wasn't art in the context of the series.
I understand.
But because you created an intentional representation of the thing that you thought was beautiful.
Something I can look at later and say, I still think that's beautiful.
Yes, exactly.
I did exactly that. There was something on a street that I thought was beautiful, and I took a photo of it. So I consider my photo of it art because I'm the one who saw it, and I'm the one who took the time to create the photo. So now the photo exists, and the original combination of elements does not exist anymore. Only my art of it does.
And the reason why I really want to break this down is because you can get almost metaphysical in the way people talk about art. And I want this to be a constructive, kind of a useful resource for artists and people interested in art. And it's just way too easy to bring gods into the matter and, nature and
spiderwebs.
Okay, so that's art versus beauty. I think we've talked about we haven't talked about it, but art versus performance, which is all the dance, music,
performance art, acting, singing, that's music. Juggling.
So, and that actually, there is, within the juggling world, there is a big rift between performance jugglers and athletic jugglers. So you open a can of worms there, Missy, because our mutual friend David Garfield's brother, Jason Garfield, actually was. I'm gonna look this up. I'm unsure of exactly what publication, but I think it was Time Magazine. Mm-hmm. It was A Boy's Life. It was Time Magazine about the feud between the jugglers who juggle as a performance and jugglers who juggle to I would say athletically, like there's a record holders for how many rings you can toss in one tossing.
Right. So it does become athletics, which was another thing I was going to bring up. Is sports performances could be considered artistic by the people who really love sports performances.
Yeah, see, these are the quagmires that we would end up
it.
getting into. I mean, look, you already pissed off half of the juggling community just with that. So these are the pitfalls we're going to try to avoid. So no dancing, no singing, no movie making, no
stand-up comedy,
juggling, no stand-up, no memes. Let's leave memes out of it.
Okay.
Because I believe that a meme is an art form, although it is a digital art form.
It's a
almost
digital
exclusively.
Art form.
Not a lot of people will print out a meme.
No, but you can on a T-shirt or a pillow.
But again, this could be something we could talk about in one of the future episodes.
I love good memes.
Is a meme art?
Because some of them are fantastic and very artsy.
There are memes that have made me laugh harder than any intentional humor I have seen.
But is the art there the humor, or is the art there the visual image? Is it the writing?
Right. See, okay. So well, that'll be later. An episode. That'll be an episode. But specifically speaking, if we use the word art, quote unquote, art, quote, art, unquote. How's that even done with you? I got my fingers up here, guys. I'm wiggling my fingers with the quote. I don't know how you say it out loud.
Quote, art, unquote.
Fantastic. When we're using the word art in just general terminology, we mean some physical touchy thing you can touch or look at, and
something we would make in our homes at our craft bench with the materials that we can use our hands with.
So that is going to be an episode in itself. Okay. What is the difference between an art and a craft? The difference between a crafter and an artist. And I think that might end up being a tough one, because I think that you and I have different opinions. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people have different opinions.
But yeah,
a craft
it's not just the two of us.
Art. Yeah. So, but again, that's yet another episode. Okay, all right. So I think we've settled what that word means for the context of this series.
We're drawing a circle around what art is that we're going to talk about, because we're not really qualified to talk about all the other stuff.
Oh no, we're qualified. That's the thing about art. That's the thing about art. Anybody's qualified to talk about art because it's so subjective to the viewer or the audience. Which we're going to have to get into what do you want to call a person who's looking at an art?
I think audience is fine. I think everybody understands what that is.
Okay, because I associated that with either performance or.
Well, for the purpose of this.
For the purpose of the podcast, art means. Something that you can hand to somebody else, basically, in one way or another. The end result is I can at least print it out and hand it to somebody.
It's an object,
and that
somebody who looks at it
is the audience.
Because they are not the artist themselves. They did not create it. They are the audience for it.
Right. Even if they are the artist in their own head.
Different topic.
It's a different topic, but it's still relevant to just because you see something you think is art doesn't make you the artist.
Wow. That is deep.
It makes you the audience.
Makes you the audience.
Right.
For the purposes of this discussion.
For the purposes of this series.
Inside this circle.
Yes. Okay.
There's an artist and there's an audience in a transaction. The artist makes something, the audience views it.
Yes, exactly, precisely. Okay, all right, wow. See, that's why I thought we needed to have this discussion.
Yeah.
Before we get any further down the line, because it is
messy.
It is a semantic minefield. when you start talking about it and there's an audience greater than yourself that has different experiences and different opinions about what is. And that, especially in the world today, trying to define even a word to mean the same thing to two different people is difficult. And so we've done that. So I want to hear it in the comments in the future. If we're talking about art in a way that excludes any form of art that you want to nitpick about, I want to hear it.
We can call this visual art. We could call it just visual art.
We could, with qualifications.
Yes.
Because you get the digital. And the, movie or whatever. So, yes, no. So if you've reached the end of this podcast, know that you may have been referred to it in a reply to a comment. You may have commented something on one of our future podcasts, which I assume we're going to make, and you got a snarky comeback followed with a link to this. Hush now. Hush now.
Shut the front door.
Shut the front door. Okay, so, and that we accomplished nothing.
Correct.
Okay.
Productive use of time.
We basically accomplished the definition of 3 words, and hopefully I can cut this down to a 20-minute podcast, because I think we're at 2.5. No, we just hit 40 minutes. That includes the cat's nonsense. Are you back? Or are you a different cat? Oh, you are back. Uh-huh. What are you telling me? What's going on outside that I need to know about right away?
There's a bunny.
You saw a bunny? You did see a bunny. Okay, you know what? I know. The bunny lives out there. The bunny lives in the yard. It's allowed. That's where they live. That's why I keep the door shut. Yeah, so what do you mean? I don't want the bunny in the house. That's why. Or the snakes, by the way. Thank you for bringing those inside. Yeah, just stop bringing snakes in and then getting upset because there's snakes in the house. I'm trying to do a podcast here. Man. Okay, so that is it for now. I suspect that our next topic of discussion will be another podcast that will mostly be about the semantics of what is an artist, which I have definite opinions about. Concrete opinions about it.
Mine are much more fuzzy.
Abstract?
Abstract.
Sounds like fun.
It does.
Okay, you have anything you want to promote, whether it be your website or anything in the world?
Absolutely nothing.
No, not a charitable organization you think needs a bump?
Nah.
TV show you like to watch?
I'm good.
Okay, well, for me, you can watch other videos on this channel about art. I haven't been able to do a lot of content for a while. Been busy with other stuff, but getting back into it now, and you can check me out, Barko Art Studio on Instagram or Facebook. Also, Barko Art Studio on YouTube, where you probably are now. You probably are. If you're seeing this, you're on one of those already. Just go to the other ones and like and subscribe. And what else? Oh, I got a store. I got a website where I sell art. I am an artist that sells art. And you can go to barkotoyco.com. barkotoyco.com to get blank figures that you can paint yourself or custom painted collectible toys. Also graphic art on skateboards and grip tape and weird stuff. All kinds of weird stuff. Got a crazy blog there as well. Okay, that's it. You got any final thoughts?
Nope.
As always, my final thoughts are not my thoughts. I had an artist tell me this once a while ago, and I don't remember who it was, and I haven't been able to see that if he made it up or quoted it, so I'm taking it. Uncle Barko says, art is 10% vision and 90% remembering what your particular vision is, so never forget, always remember your vision. Talk to you next time.